All the rules Uncle Clifford has set has been broken. Murder Night, episode 7. All the rules have been broken, y'all. This episode, the final episode, was great. There's a lot that went on. And of course, this is going to be a long recap because I want you guys who haven't followed p.valley to basically get, you know, we start out where we left Sunday. Montavious and Autumn is basically in the paradise, in the paradise, in the paradox, in the paradise room. And we find out some more interesting things about Haley, and the fact that the reason why she likes doing stripping is because basically it seems like Haley lived in Houston, and in Houston she took stripping license. I think the club was called the Houston Paradox Strip Club or something, but basically she took lessons to basically do stripping, and these lessons were probably for Montavious. Now, Montavious has asked Haley, "Where's my money?" Remember, we were focusing in on the eyeball, on the cameras panned in, and he asked Haley, "Where is my money?" I mean, this is when we hear, this is episode 8, said that I don't have it. Where's my money, Haley? What did you do with it? She says, I put it in the bank. How do you put it in the bank? I know that you did not deposit $250,000 in the bank. No way that you were able to do that. And how did you get away with it? Well, they assume pretty girls are basically not smart. But we find out a little bit and more about Haley. Haley is intelligent. Haley knows how to move money around. Haley was in the business world. Not only in the business world, she was in the corporate world where the real money rolls around. In other words, remember when she was telling Mercedes that if you wanted to do your gym, don't put all your baskets, all your money on yourself. Basically, get a partner. Now remember what she was telling Andre. She told Andre, she says, okay, if basically you going, do some dirty dealing, make sure you go to incorporate Delaware to incorporate. So it will be very, very, very hard to basically trace the money. So Haley knows how to move money around. Meanwhile, Montavious is basically asking her, "Where's my money?" I mean, this is when Haley says that there's cameras all around here, and don't think that they're not looking at you. And then Montavious says, "Yeah, that's why you're gonna dance. That's why you're gonna strip, so they can see that you are basically on your job." So Haley is stripping. But Haley, let me tell y'all guys, Haley ain't got a move when it comes to stripping. She don't know nothing about it, but she likes doing it. Apparently, she took lessons to learn how to do it. And so, in the meantime, we got Mercedes. Mercedes. Wow, Mercedes. Now, Mercedes is Mercedes, Mercedes. Why are you selling yourself short $10,000, although you have half of 20K and you need the other half? And basically, you dancing for someone who don't really value you, only want you as, I'm going to say kind of a throwaway kind of thing. Just when he gets tired of his wife, he has somewhere to go to instead of moving, going all the way to Chucalissa, moving all the way to Memphis, coming from Atlanta just to see you so he can play around. Now, plan B, Mercedes, is basically dancing and saying, well, what do you think? How do you think? You like it? You like what you see? And then this is when she basically stopped in the midst of things and she says, you know what? How do you feel about me? Uh, and this is when the coach says, oh, I'm just a revolving wallet to you. And he says basically majority of the amount of money, it seems like he only dropped somewhere like 3K. He didn't really drop a lot. And at first he said, I'll drop 3K. He was willing to do 3K, not 10. You know, if he was willing to do 3K, I would have took the $3,000 and added what? The other seven, figure it out. Get an investor. But he basically wanted half of the club. And Mercedes says, oh no, we're not going for that. Have you lost your mind? No way in full. So the meanwhile, Mercedes is basically, trying to get herself a partner. Haley is basically in the paradox room, um, dancing and pretending while Montavious is sitting there up on the throne looking at her and asking, where is my money? We have Diamond. Diamond is basically outside, basically doing his thing, looking at IDs and everything, right? Looking at IDs. Now, do you all remember little fat boy? What was his name? I forgot what his name was. But anyway, he comes and Diamond looks at his fake ID. Diamond knows that this boy is basically underage. But he goes and let him go in. And then Diamond tells him, basically, stay in school. When you get in there, stay in school. And so he specifically goes and he is basically on a mission. He goes and he looks for Mercedes. And then he finds the room that Mercedes might be in and he knocks on the door. And Mercedes said, what the hell are you doing here, fat boy? And then he gives Mercedes a flyer. And the flyer has Haley coat on it. And this is when she says, look, don't get out. He said something out of the way. I didn't know exactly what he said out of the way, but she says, look, don't get beside yourself in so many words. And so basically, he gives a flyer to Mercedes. And then Mercedes says, where did you get this? And how did you get in here? And he says that your boy, old boy, who came to make sure that, he was going to make it to your last dance is basically in jail right now. And he's been in jail for about 2 days. And before he went to jail for 2 days, he did some kind of crystal and everything. And Fat Boy was trying to say, well, I told him to basically give it to me and I would, hold it for him. But he messed around and he got locked up. But he gave me this fake ID in order for me to get in. And he told me to make sure that you get it. And if it wasn't for my boy and Fat Little Boy, we don't know exactly what would have happened with Mercedes and Autumn. In the meantime, Mercedes look at the flyer and the coach is basically looking at her and wondering, and they're getting ready to toast because he's thinking that he's gonna get himself some ping ping, some p pussy, and he's gonna be able to get in anytime he wants to get tired of his wife. Then he's gonna come in and ride on Mercedes a little bit. And so Mercedes says, "Well, look, Coach, looks like uh, my price is basically gonna be going up. Let me give you some. Let me think about this for a minute or two. I'll get back with you." In the meantime, Mercedes takes the flyer that she gets and she goes basically running towards the uh, Uncle Clifford. And we're gonna get to Uncle Clifford and Little Murder later on. But she goes basically running to and let Uncle Clifford knows exactly what's going on with Autumn. In the meantime, we see all the rules of p.valley has basically been broken. Al, Big Al, is supposed to be watching the cameras. Now, at one time, he was watching the cameras and he was eating some Chinese food, right? And he was talking about these light skinned, they really get away with not doing too much of anything. And this is when he received a text over his phone. Now, you remember Gidget and the boyfriend who they were basically holding some Oxycontin for one time only? Well, it seems that Big L has basically scored, and he has scored big. But in the meantime, he ain't watching no cameras. He's going out there to check out, what's going on. In the meantime, everything is going down in the valley, right? In the pink. And so, while all this is going on, while all this is basically going on, Mississippi and Little Murder basically takes the stage. And of course, they have killed it, right? They have killed it. And at first, I thought that Little Murder was basically going to freeze. He didn't. He came out, the both of them were very, very good. And he froze for a minute and he looked at all the crowd. And we hear, I'll give it to you all over love. And Little Murder was like looking at everybody, looking at the crowd. And he was basically like really, really overtaken with the fact that they knew the words to I'll give it to you all over love. Now we know that that song is basically geared towards Uncle Clifford and his relationship, and that the fact that both of them are involved with each other, right? So while Mississippi and Little Murder is basically out on the stage, things are still going down in the Paradise Room. Montavious is still talking bull crap, right? And so we see that Derek, Derek is basically peering at Mississippi and peering at the fact that, she is basically dancing and every time she twitch and move, he gets jealous even more and more and more. And so finally, Mississippi and Little Murder has completed. Now you remember the politic uh, Little Murder's coach or his promoter basically told him that he's going to have to go out there and get that money and don't mess it up, right? And so we find out that this promoter basically really didn't really come for Little Murder. He basically came for, as he called her, it was a lot of dialect, as he called her, the Black Barbie, because let's admit, Mississippi is gorgeous. She's a gorgeous black chocolate woman, right? And so he really didn't come there for Mississippi for a Little Murder. He basically came there for Mississippi, but he tried to pretend that he was basically there. And so this is when the promoter gave uh, Little Murder, while they have completed, he was there looking at Mississippi and Little Murder. And basically he said a lot of junk, but he basically also cracked on Little Murder due to the fact as how he was basically presenting himself. But all the while you could see, if you could have bought him for $1,000, he basically ate Mississippi up. You could see the lust and everything all in his eyes. If he could, he would have jumped on her right then and there, but of course, he was in his promotive mood. Now, meanwhile, we got Derek. Derek is basically still peering. And so um, they wanted to basically have a meeting, and so Mississippi says, "Well, go ahead and do what you got to do, and let me take care of this this client right here." And then this is when they said something smart or anything, and so we see that Mississippi and Little Murder is basically in, I believe, maybe the champagne room. I'm not quite sure, and we see Derek. Really he's really getting on my nerves because I'm like, yo, white boy, you all insecure like that? Well, I mean, you should be because she is gorgeous, but anyway, he's calling Mississippi, and he says, I'll be right there. And then this is when all of a sudden Mississippi got kahunas and say, hey, wait, you know what, can't you see me? I mean, she used all kind of words, but we're not going to do that. And so she decided to, go and see what Derek. And this is when Derek, he hems her up in the corner and tell her to get your things and be out there in the car. By the time I come from pissing, I want you to be in that car. Now, meantime, Mercedes has basically knocked on the door where Montavious and Autumn is basically in the room. And so Autumn basically tried to escape. Said, "Well, I'll let him. Let me let her." And he says, "Well, get away from the door." He comes to the door. Montavious comes to the door, and there's Mercedes there with a bottle of champagne, and said, "When you're in the champagne room, there's complimentary a bottle of champagne. We'll go with that, and also you have complimentary of 2 tits, 4 tits instead of 2. Okay, 4 tits instead of 2." So she basically breaks her way into the room and she says, well, pops the bottle of champagne, boop, and Autumn kind of jumps because it sounds like a gun. And so we see that Mercedes basically knows the deal, what's going on. And so she tries to stall. And so he says, well, I don't really need any brown liquor. He goes into his pocket, goes to his pocket and pull out money and give it to Mercedes. And Mercedes says, okay. And then this is when the both of them were basically dancing before he gives her the money. She was dancing and they looked like they were tired the way they were dancing. It looked like they were like, they can't dance no more. They can't twerk no more. They're running out of energy. And so, and then this is when Mercedes says, well, my champagne is still in my bottle. And this is when she says, well, dollars should have been all over there. And then this is when Mercedes takes the champagne because Montavious is really getting fed up. And so he just says, he pours out the bottle. It says, oops, it's all gone. And so this is when, I guess, Mercedes said, look, this is enough. So this is when um, Mercedes takes a bottle of champagne, and the bottle was empty, and she takes the bottle and she breaks it. And then this is when she starts to swing it and everything. And so one thing led to another and everything. And so this is when Montavious kept hollering, where is my money, Haley? Where's my money? And Mercedes was under the grips of him. Now we find out that Montavious is a part of a gang called the Delta or something. So he tells Autumn, you're basically not going to get out here, and don't think that you're not being watched, because all I have to do is call my boys and they'll basically come and burn this club down to the ground. And so this is when basically um, Autumn Haley says, okay, wait a minute, I got it. He says, where's the money? It's here, it's in the club. I've been basically saving it in the club. And so he tells Autumn, I'm going to give you 5 minutes, because in the meantime, he has Mercedes underneath his grip, and it has a knife. Now, I thought they took all the knives and everything away from him with Diamond, but I guess he had another one somewhere slipped down in his boot. So, meantime, while they're dealing with all of that, right, we have Mississippi and Murder. Now, Uncle Clifford, she comes into the club and says, was there anything basically I can do for you? And she basically puts her hands on on Little Murder's shoulder. And then this is when the promoter says, well, dag, we can't distinguish whether they want to be a woman or whether or not they want to be a man, although they said something else a little bit more derogatory or anything, but I'm trying to be kind of nice, but you're going to see me every now and then. I may say a curse word here or there. And so this is when um, Little Murder told Uncle Clifford, he said, right now we're doing business. We're doing business. And so Uncle Clifford was basically feeling some kind of way as to how Little Murder basically came towards him. And that really threw her for a loop, because it was very, very surprising. And now Little Murder knew that he had basically made it, because just like what, not even 15 minutes ago, they were like inside of the car, and Little Murder had Uncle Clifford had her all pinned up in the car and everything. All we saw was nails, so we knew what went down, right? And so Uncle Clifford, she was very upset, so she went into um, basically her office, and I was surprised that I saw a jukebox. Those of you all who are in your 60s, you know exactly what a jukebox is. It's where you play all kinds of songs and a selection of songs, but she was like, she wasn't feeling that. She was totally upset due to the fact how Little Murder treated her. And so while all of this is going on with her and Little Murder, um, Montavious still working and doing and everything. And so everybody has broke rules tonight. And so we see that Derek. Now, we was waiting for this beatdown for him. We wanted Diamond to whoop, and I mean whoop him like there was no tomorrow. Now, he said some things and he called Diamond a gutter. And he used the N word, a gutter, right? And for a minute there, I thought Diamond was basically gonna get his little hind parts whipped because Derek was basically overcoming, and in my vision, he was winning. He was basically winning. He was whooping the crap out of Diamond, and then Diamond basically got his balance and started whooping and was able to get control over it, right? So in the meantime, while Diamond and uh, uh, Derek was in the bathroom basically throwing down, Uncle Clifford happened to look up at the cameras and saw that the heifers was basically showing tits. Now you know there's supposed to be no tits in the club because if there is tits, the club's gonna get shut down. And so Uncle Clifford saw that the man basically had Mercedes by the throat, and this is when he looked in and he said, "Oh hell, no, we not." So he looked down and he grabbed the gun that was thrown, that was confiscated when Diamond was basically shaking down in everybody. And meanwhile, while Diamond is basically whooping ass, basically in the bathroom, we see that Autumn. Autumn has basically, because Montavious gave her what 5 minutes to get her little self, to get the money and come back, or if he says that Mercedes' blood is going to be all over the floor. And so in the meantime, we see that Autumn runs down to the locker, changes her clothes, grabs the money, and looks for the gun. Remember, she had put a gun up there. But, the gun is gone. Where is the hell is the gun? Well, we know that the gun is with Mississippi. Mississippi has this gun, right? And so in the meantime, we thinking, and I'm thinking that Autumn is going to go back and say, here's the money. No, she didn't do that. What she do? She runs out and get into the car and getting ready to leave Mercedes basically by herself. And then this is when Montavious tells Mercedes, well, you think she's basically going to come back for you? Well, you don't know her the way I do. And then this is when Mercedes tried to reason and talk to him. And we know that we found out that Autumn was basically killed and drowned because Haley was basically trying to get away from Montavious. And so we see the flashback. And I'm wondering, what the hell going on? What you gonna do? You gonna be the true, authentic self that Montavious says that you are? And so in the meantime, Uncle Clifford basically burst into the paradise room. And we see that Mercedes is scuffling with Montavious. And meantime, everybody has broken rules within Murder Night. So in the meantime, we see that Mississippi has told Mississippi had no, not Mississippi, but the promoter of Little Murder, while they were having this conversation, he said, "Well, looks like you really ain't interested in Little Murder. You look like you're interested in Mississippi. So if it ain't Little Murder, there's no deal. There's no deal." And apparently, the promoter basically said something, and Mississippi basically had to step up and to protect her boss, and told the promoter, "Well, you don't know who you're talking about. Uncle Clifford will do more than what you think she is capable of doing." Now, in the meantime, we see that Lil Murder, I know I'm skipping back and forth, but we see that Lil Murder basically made his way into Uncle Clifford's office. And Uncle Clifford said, "Look, I really don't know you. And you talking about all we going when you first pursued me." Now remember, Little Murder was the one who pursued Uncle Clifford. And she told him it wasn't going to work due to the fact of the career that he's basically, going for. And basically, Uncle Clifford told Little Murder, "I don't know you. Right now, I see Little Murder. I don't see the guy who basically, what is she? I forgot the name, but she called him by his birth name." And he said, "Well, right now, I don't know you, and see your way through the door." And not only did she say through the door, she also said through the window too. See your way and don't come back in here. And so I mean, this guy who's basically playing Little Murder, you could see that Little Murder basically he was basically hurt. Tears was forming up in his eyes, and he was trying to tell Uncle Clifford that he was ready for her, and he says, "I'm ready." And Uncle Clifford, she told him, "No, you're not. You're not ready right now. I thought you were. I thought you were. You said you didn't want our relationship to be in the dark, but I see otherwise." Now, we have to remember that, especially straight men who have an attraction to trans women, and basically they call straight men trade in the field of, the gay, well, anyway, they call them trade. And if a straight man finds out, in other words, they will not let other people basically know that they have an attraction to trans women. So this is basically why we're having a lot of killing of trans women, and I'm so glad that they are putting this out in the open like this and let you see exactly what's going on, because this is really how it works, especially. And let's not forget women. We cannot forget women, trans women, and women who like trans women have the same issues. Um, so anyway, Lil Murder winds up leaving. In the meantime, Uncle Clifford finds out what's going on in the Paradise Room, and he grabs the gun, and he's calling and asking Diamond, "Where the hell is everybody? Where is Uncle Big L?" Big L is basically scoring, but then we see that Montavious, and I'm saying to myself, well, where the hell is, what's he gonna do? So all of a sudden, we see that Haley basically makes it back, and she says, "Here's some money. I got the money. Here's some money." And so this is when Mercedes stabbed her, Montavious in the leg, and they're scuffling and everything. And while they're scuffling, Diamond and Derek is scuffling. Everybody is scuffling. All of a sudden, shots goes up in the air. Now, in the meantime, the Paradise Room is basically still closed. So a lot of people really don't know what's really going down in the Paradise Room. So what really happened is that Derek and Diamond, basically, they were scuffling. And they wind out in the main room where everything was taking place. And this is when everything started scattering. People started moving and screaming, guns shot, boom. And so all of a sudden, we see that he was getting his hind part because Diamond was tearing his little rump up, right? So all of a sudden, we see, now this is when I'm going to call her Keyshawn. Keyshawn pulls out the gun that was basically in the locker and points it at Diamond and tells Diamond to get off of Derek. I'm like, are you for real? Are you serious? You telling me that you pointing this gun at Diamond and you've been coming back and forth to the club with your hind parts beat for this little white chocolate, right? You point the gun, and you should have seen the look on Diamond's face. He was literally whipped, tore down, but I also believe that his heart was basically broken as to what Keyshawn basically did. So all of a sudden we hear gunshot wound. A gunshot goes up. Diamond grabs the gun and goes, and then Big L hears it, and everybody's scattering out of the club, right? And so Gidget tells no, so trying to remember. We see that Diamond is basically moving throughout the club, and all of a sudden we hear two gunshot wounds, bang, bang, and then all of a sudden we see blood running through the door, running out of the edge of the door. Now, I'm not happy with this clip. Whoever was editing this clip, I didn't like the way they edited. It basically jumped. I think it could have been a better smooth transition in terms of editing in it. Please take your time in editing clips, because when you're in the editing room, you want to make sure. I mean, that's what I've learned in film school. You want to be careful of how you edit, and it was apparent that it didn't. That wasn't a smooth transition. So in the meantime, we jump and we thinking that the funeral. Now I said I didn't know where the funeral was going to be. I was going. Matter of fact, let me see. I got a black hat on. Is this black? Yeah. Got a black hat on. Right. No, let me take it off. But anyway, we see that everybody is basically in black. Now we pretty much figured that the funeral was for basically the pink going on the auction block, right? Now we see Loretta Devine. She's basically upset. She's listening to the news, and only when she's listening to the news, she hears about what went down in the pink. And in the pink, it didn't turn out too good. Then all of a sudden, we hear about the mayor, and the mayor's telling her, well, if I become your new mayor of Chucalissa, I'll make sure that the pink is no longer. So we see that uh, Grandma wants to drive the car, and Uncle Clifford, she says, no, you can't do that. And she says, I've been going to this courthouse with my eyes shut. But she gave the keys over to Uncle Clifford, and they went to this auction. Now, in the meantime, we see that Mercedes. Now, Mercedes is basically upset. A lot going on. Mercedes looking tore down. She got a black eye. Everybody, if you really look at it, everybody got a black eye. Uncle Clifford, she's got bruised knuckles. But we see Mercedes sitting on the curb. And who do we see? We see Mercedes' pimp hustling mother basically coming. And Mercedes is basically sitting down and asking herself, is it, possible that we can get a second term? God can forgive. And then this is when Patrice says, well, yeah, God can forgive several times, multiple times. And then we see that Patrice reaches down and grabs Mercedes and tells Mercedes, remember, I'm dead to you. I was like, oh my God, are you serious? No way in full hell did you just tell your daughter that she's dead to her. Now remember, this is what Mercedes basically told her mother, that she was dead to her, right? Now, she had the audacity. Oh my, if I could have came through that daggone television screen, I would have snatched her little ass. Excuse my expression. I try not to curse that much, but this is one of the occasions. I would have snatched her little ass. And I would have thrown her up against that wall. But anyway. Uh, so, in the meantime, while we see all this, everybody is basically on their way to the auction. Everybody's in black, and we see the mayor. Now, the mayor is basically in all red. I don't know where the heck. He looks like he was in a 1994 Janet Jackson music video with a zoot, big hat, red and everything. And this is when the mayor says, "My condolence," and then Grandma Clifford's auntie says, "F you, the mayor," and so everybody was like, "Oh!" They was surprised that that even said to her. So, in the meantime, we see that Andre, him and his wife is basically coming out of the hotel, right? And we see the clerk, and they're checking out, and Andre really didn't want his wife to basically go to this auction, because I think he didn't want her to see what was going on with this auction and all of the girls that was in there, all of the strippers and everything. Well, the clerk told Andre's wife, "Well, I'm sure that Andre has basically learned how to knows that Bible in and out." And so we see that um, Uncle Clifford, all the girls are basically sitting, and then here the mayor comes in. He sits down, and he has some words for Uncle Clifford. He tells her, "Well, I hope everything will be okay because the way you're managing the club, I don't know, but maybe you'll do a little bit better when the casino comes around." And so we see that Andre, his wife, and the mayor is basically sitting down. And so we see that this is when the auction began. And so they first open it up. Andre was such in a hurry, and the wife says, calm down. Wait a minute, we're gonna get there. We're gonna get there." And so all of a sudden, the auctioneer says, "Okay. Here we go. We have 50,000, 50,000. Now I have 50,000 ones." Then we see all of a sudden Andre lift up his cup. It says, "Okay, 50,000," and then all of a sudden we see, all right, we have 56,000. He said 56,000, 56,000, and then all of a sudden we see in the back, he said, "Oh, we have a new bidder, 56,000, and then 56,000." Then we see Haley. Haley is in his bad white suit with a white hat on in the corner. And then they said, "Okay, we got 56, 56, 56, 10,000." And then and then Haley says, "Oh, we're going to go with, I think it was 200 and whatever." And then the mayor was saying, "Oh, come on, Andre, don't let her outbid you. Do what you got to do. Do what you got to do." And so they went back and forth, back and forth. And of course, Haley wins and buys the P.Valley Club. So Haley, Haley, aka Autumn, owns P.Valley. Okay. Everybody was like, "What the hell?" And then we see that Andre, now let me tell you, Andre is a little slimy little thing. And Andre remembered what Haley told him as far as a shady little deal. If he decides that he want to go shady, he went shady. And because the man who was basically gave him a cap answered the phone, and Andre pretend that he couldn't get through, and he let Haley win that club, right? He lets Haley win that club. And of course, the wife basically looks at and kind of figured out what was going on is because Andre, in so many words, said in the eyes, said thank you by the eyes. Now we know them two are basically gonna get together. We know that. They're gonna get together. They're gonna get together. And oh, when they do. And so we know that the club is now bought by Haley. Haley owns p.valley. Now, Uncle Clifford is like, why'd you come back? Why'd you do it? And then Haley said, well, you saved me. So it was just my duty to basically save you. I needed you, and now you I need you and you need me, and I need you. I guess that's kind of sort of. And so this is when we see that um Mercedes basically makes it to the club, and we find out, and it was I think in the windows, we thinking, and we're not quite sure that Mercedes might have been the person who might have killed Montavious, but we are not sure. And the reason why I said we are not sure is because we just assuming that Montavious was the one that kind of lost his life, because the paradise never revealed who killed her. But I'm thinking, I don't know. This was a best cliffhanger that's ever I've seen in a very long time. I enjoyed it. Now let's look at a couple of things. Now, if it wasn't for the little fat boy who was basically holding the ankle bracelet for um uh my for Mercedes, they would have never known what was really going down, and how Mercedes discovered that uh, Haley was Haley Coat. If it wasn't for her friend who basically faked the ID, who basically faked the young boy an ID to basically get to Mercedes to let her know exactly what was going on. Now, Derek, we don't know now. Now I'm not going to say I lost my respect for Keyshawn, but I'm not feeling you right now, Keyshawn. Okay, you know we ain't feeling you right now. Now, Derek, we don't know what happened to her because remember she told Derek, now when I go home, what's going to happen? You're going to probably try to beat me down again. So did she, or did she shoot him, or what did she do? She pointed the gun at Diamond. She hurt Diamond's heart. And we know that Autumn and Andre are going to get together. They're going to get together. This was the best short premiere show. So we know that they're coming back for the second season. We don't know. No, we know that Lil Murder and Uncle Clifford, her and Lil Murder is basically not a couple, or are they a couple? And I'm really surprised in the promoter. He was like, it's all or nothing. You either take the whole kit and caboodle, the promoter, the producer, or you get nothing. So this is it with p.valley. We'll see them in the second season. Loved it. We're still in the pandemic. Click subscribe, become a subscriber, like, watch. Need your help, guys. Like, watch, become a prescriber. And I don't know. I need to find another show. I know that Ghost 2, I've never looked at Ghost, and I don't think I want to start looking at it. Maybe I might, peer in the windows and see if this something that I think I might want to go and check out. I might do it. I'm not quite sure. Till the next time, we have 50 something days before the election. Look, if you want to make the United States peaceful again and bring it back to the way it was, vote. Vote like you never voted before. Till the next time, peace and love. And I'm out of here.